This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, November 16th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate your staying with us on Africa 54. We begin in the Ethiopia's Tigray region, where fighting appears to be escalating, forcing tens of thousands of people to flee. The Ethiopian federal government says this is a limited military action against some members of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, but the TPLF says this is a war against Tigray. The United Nations Refugee Agency says the number of people who have fled into Sudan to escape fighting in northern Ethiopia has climbed to at least 20,000 people. Local and UN agencies are trying to assist the refugees who have been arriving in growing numbers with few possessions or provisions. Some in boats, some swimming or wading through rivers, according to Reuters. Hundreds of people have been killed since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent the National Defense Force on an offensive against some of the TPLF Tigray last week, accusing them of attacking federal troops. Several refugees say their areas have been shelled by artillery from neighboring Eritrea to support the Ethiopian army. Neither Reuters nor VOA have independently verified this claim. Tigray Regional President Debretsion Gebremichael said last Tuesday that Eritrea had sent troops across the border in support of Ethiopian government forces, but provided no evidence. Eritrean Foreign Minister Asman Saleh Mohammed denied this claim on Friday. Lockdown restrictions are hampering Somalia's efforts to contain swarms of desert locusts that are ravaging farmland across the country, threatening livelihoods in a nation where many already go hungry. David Doyle reports.
For Mohammed Yassin, the rifle slung across his shoulder is no protection against this invasion. A swarm of locusts, which has taken over his farm on the outskirts of the Somali capital, Mogadishu, and is eating his maize, beans, and all of his grass. He says he wants the government to help because his land is being turned into a desert. Like neighbouring Kenya and Ethiopia, Somalia has been battling swarms of desert locusts since late last year. But the war-ravaged country has struggled due to insecurity, remote locations, and a lack of resources. And lockdown restrictions have exacerbated the situation, disrupting supply chains of pesticides and other equipment. According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, the infestation has affected more than 1,000 square miles of land in Somalia and impacted the food security of at least 200,000 people.
David Doyle of Reuters with that report. More than 54 million coronavirus cases have been confirmed worldwide, according to the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. The United States, India, and Brazil continue to top the list as the places with the most infections. The US has more than 11 million cases, while India and Brazil have 8.8 million and 5.8 million respectively. Algerian officials may reimpose restrictions meant to quell the spread of the virus, which were eased in June. The North African country has confirmed more than 67,000 cases of the virus. Europe is facing another surge of the coronavirus, and several countries have imposed tighter COVID-19 restrictions. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is self-isolating after being in contact with a member of parliament who tested positive for COVID-19. Johnson fell sick with the virus in April. France, which has confirmed more than 1.9 million cases of COVID-19, is in its second lockdown of the year, which is scheduled to last until December 1st. As coronavirus cases rise in the United States, the transition team for former Vice President Joe Biden, the projected winner of the 2020 presidential race, is asking the Trump administration to begin the transition process this week to help the country. Michelle Quinn reports.
Wherever you look in the U.S., the coronavirus pandemic is surging. But the virus responsible for the COVID-19 disease is caught up in a political drama. Whether President Donald Trump will allow cooperation between his administration and the team for Joe Biden, the projected winner of the 2020 presidential race, who would be inaugurated on January 20th. So far, Trump, who continues to allege without evidence that there was widespread voter fraud, has not allowed a transition to a new government to begin. Biden team members say that is endangering the country amid the pandemic's surge.
It is in the nation's interest that the transition team get the threat assessments that the team knows about, understand the vaccine distribution plans. We need to know where the stockpile are, what the status is of masks and gloves. There's a lot of information that needs to be transmitted. It can't wait to the last minute.
President Trump hasn't attended a virus task force meeting in 5 months, according to the Washington Post. But the president spoke last week about the timeline of a vaccine for the COVID-19 disease.
And this process is starting right away. Millions of doses will soon be going out the door. They're all ready, waiting for that final approval.
Admiral Giroir, member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, says that the Trump administration's efforts to combat the infection are shared widely with the public, including members of Biden's team.
I want to be as transparent as possible with everybody. This is not a political issue. This is an issue of public health and saving American lives, and I think there's nothing more important than that.
John Bolton, a former Trump national security advisor, called on Republican leaders to push the White House to share information about the virus and national security with the incoming Biden administration.
Again, I just think it requires Republicans to explain that in the nature of things, we need a transition, and we should proceed with it as soon as we can.
According to the Johns Hopkins University, the U.S. currently has nearly 11 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and close to 246,000 deaths. The U.S. leads the world in the number of cases. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
The fashion industry, which used to rely on face-to-face interaction, has been forced to adapt to COVID realities for employees. Maxim Moskalkov has the story.
Working virtually has put a temporary hold on workplace dress codes and shifted the focus to looking one's best on video conference for work.
So that's a new reality now, right? So a lot of us can't see each other in person, so we have to do a lot of Zoom meetings, video meetings. And I thought, you still have to see each other. So you still have to worry about how you look, whether it's your makeup, your hair, accessories, clothing, well, at least the top half.
Personal stylist Tin Lin has shifted her focus to helping clients look their best on virtual conferences. Typically, the consultation of personal stylist ranged from $70 to $325.
The client has to bring everything in front of the computer, show me different pieces they have, things that they're happy about, things that they're not happy about, and I kind of give them advice on whether to keep it or not.
Washington, D.C. stylist and designer Jason Burr published a series of Instagram video lessons on Zoom and other video conference meetings.
Work with an interior designer, work with a stylist such as myself to figure out, okay, what colors work best with my skin tone? What should I wear if I paint the wall this color? What should I wear in front of it? What should the background and surroundings look like? There should be a great piece of artwork hanging behind you as well.
Owner of an image consulting company, DC Style Factory, Rosanna Wolmerhausen, says everything matters, even the background.
You really want to do the work to figure out where in your home is going to be most optimal for a Zoom call. And the key element of that is the lighting. Set up a little desk area for yourself that has a background that is pretty neutral.
COVID has had a definite impact on clothing retailers. Walmart says that in the first half of 2020, they have sold considerably more tops and jackets than pants and skirts. Office apparel retailers are changing their focus too, shifting the attention from an overall look to what meets the eye, through Zoom and Skype or some other video meeting. Maxim Moskalko for VOA News, Washington.
The economic impact from COVID-19 has led to the shutdown of companies around the globe. But as Dave Gunbaum reports, one small business in Malaysia found a way to go from bust to boom.
At home with his family, Sri Themadu packages gift baskets his customers have ordered for the Indian festival Deepavali. Savoring sweet treats from crackers to coconut candy. They're all made from scratch in his mother's home and in the kitchens of several friends. For 8 years, Shri's seasonal business has catered to Malaysian families and local companies who buy the gift baskets for employees and clients.
So I go to the corporate companies, show some samples, and also let them taste the food before they purchase. But this year, I could not do that due to the pandemic.
And sales dropped dramatically due to the slumping economy. So he took a chance and invested almost $1,000 to hire a professional photographer and videographer to improve the look of his website and promote his sweets on Instagram. Business not only turned around, but he now has 3 times as much revenue as his previous best year.
The main reason why I did professional videography and photography is because people cannot touch, feel the product, but they want to see the best visuals in order for them to feel they're buying the right product for their clients or their staff.
It's a success story at a time when many businesses are struggling in the current economic climate.
It all boils down to the mindset of business owners.
Yohindra Nader Arultavan, a researcher at the Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, says business owners must adapt to changing times.
If they're willing to make the changes that are needed to stay relevant to the demands that consumers have currently, then you'll survive.
So I think when there is a problem, so you need to find a solution. So same goes here. So when the climate has changed, the business climate has changed, so we really need to tap on and look for the other options, how we can perform better. So that is what actually we did.
As one path to customers closed, Shri found a new one. And that's why for him, business this year is as sweet as his treats. Dave Grunebaum for VOA News, Cyberjaya, Malaysia.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover during the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We'll also stream our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, thousands of pro-Trump demonstrators marched in Washington on Saturday. We'll have a report.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linoch Mudu, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Thousands of protesters marched in Washington on Saturday supporting President Donald Trump and his unproven claims of widespread voter fraud in the November 3rd election. VOA's Michael Sullivan reports that supporters of President-elect Joe Biden also rallied demanding an orderly transition of presidential power.
They converged on the nation's capital, getting a thumbs up from President Donald Trump, who drove by in his motorcade. Despite an absence of evidence, they say President-elect Joe Biden stole the election.
We hope that the nation will heal by listening to our voice so that we know that we will have a fair election. All the legitimate and fair votes and legal votes will be counted.
The far-right self-described Western chauvinists, Proud Boys, were among the protesters. So were groups billed as Women for America First, Million MAGA March, and Stop the Steal D.C. There was name-calling as Biden supporters confronted the demonstrators and some skirmishes and arrests, but the march and a rally at the U.S. Supreme Court were mostly peaceful. Encouraged by President Trump, many protesters believe the election results were altered with fraudulent ballots or rigged voting machines.
And they can turn automatically your votes. This is why they had to recount one by one.
A close count in Georgia triggered an automatic recount, which is being done by hand.
If there's one vote that is fraudulent, that's enough for me. This isn't a research project. I'm not looking for statistically significant stuff. I'm looking for one evidence of voter fraud.
But that won't make a difference, say election experts. Most analysts say recounts and legal challenges in individual states are unlikely to change the result of the election.
We hope Trump wins, but if he doesn't, the world will go on.
These Trump supporters say it's not over yet, and Trump insists he has no plan to concede.
If President Trump concedes, then of course we're going to accept that too.
With or without a concession, President-elect Biden will take office on January 20th. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Although projected to lose the U.S. election, President Donald Trump tightened the race in part by getting more minority votes than in 2016, especially among Hispanics. VOA's Brand Padden reports on how this growing population is also becoming more diverse.
The increase nationally in the Hispanic vote for President Donald Trump from 28% in 2016 to 32% this year, according to exit polls, surprised many experts.
I think that we've got to, going forward, really disaggregate that Latino vote. It is not a vote.
Many analysts assume the president's harsh anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies, in particular separating migrant children from their families at the U.S. border with Mexico, would create a groundswell of support for Democratic rival Joe Biden among Latinos. Some, however, in the overwhelmingly Catholic or conservative Christian Hispanic electorate supported Trump and the Republican Party for their opposition to gay marriage and abortion.
Being pro-life was primarily one of the biggest reasons I voted for Donald Trump.
Some fiscally conservative Hispanics also like Trump's efforts to cut taxes and regulations while discounting the Democrats' repeated promises to increase wages and expand access to health care.
We Latinos believe that no matter what they say, offering the moon and the stars, they will not keep their promises.
A surge of Latino support helped Trump win Florida with over 51% of the vote, defying some pre-election polls that had Biden ahead. Analysts say Trump's efforts to label Democrats as socialists, as well as his tough policies opposing communist Cuba and Venezuela socialist leader Nicolas Maduro, helped solidify his support within the fiercely anti-communist Cuban-American community in Miami. Some Latino advocates say Biden neglected Florida, while Trump held multiple rallies in this state, which his campaign thought would play a pivotal role in this election.
You know, Biden really was kind of late to the party.
Increased Latino support in Texas helped Trump win decisively in another state that was supposed to be close. However, Hispanic support helped Biden become the projected winner in part by flipping Arizona and gaining a lead in Georgia, two states that voted for Trump in 2016.
There isn't a state now where we're not relevant.
The growing Latino population in the U.S. is becoming increasingly diverse, analysts say, and is one the Democrats cannot take for granted. Brian Padden, VOA News, Washington.
Joe Biden, the projected winner of the U.S. presidential election, will inherit a pandemic-ravaged economy that shows signs of recovery. As Keith Kaczynski reports, Biden's ambitious economic agenda could face hurdles in a politically divided Congress.
U.S. stock markets rose after Democrat Joe Biden was projected to have won the 2020 presidential contest. Financial analysts say investors will be reassured if Republicans retain their Senate majority.
The stock market loves divided government. Why? Things are predictable. Why? Because not a lot of things will change.
America's continued economic recovery is closely tied to progress in combating the pandemic. While COVID-19 cases have spiked, promising vaccine trial results have also been reported. Economists say getting back to pre-pandemic economic conditions will be a challenge for the Biden administration.
We're still in a deep economic hole. We have to recover about 10 million jobs to get back to where we were in February. And I think most expectations are that won't take place until 2022.
During the campaign, Biden proposed raising taxes on corporations and the wealthy to fund initiatives in healthcare, education, the environment, and infrastructure. Lockstep Republican opposition is all but assured to any tax hike.
That is not necessarily the best thing for the economy. However, what I believe will offset that will be plans for infrastructure, and infrastructure will get people back to work.
Under a Biden administration, the U.S. is expected to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. Biden has promised a clean energy revolution that would put the United States on a path to net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
If it is done immediately, I think we could see some specific issues in the economy because the oil industry impacts everything.
The U.S. should not be in a lagging position. We should be in a global leading position in terms of developing the technologies, investing the technologies, and transforming the economy.
Amid the pandemic gloom, some see a bright economic future.
The age of discovery is not yet over, so as technological advances continue, we're going to see parts of the economy grow and explode that we can't even anticipate right now.
Biden is likely to focus initially on economic stimulus and recovery measures. Before the pandemic, America enjoyed a decade-long economic expansion that saw wages rise and unemployment plunge to historic lows. Keith Kaczynski for VOA News, New York.
Kamala Harris made history as the first woman projected to become vice president-elect. That means her husband, Doug Emhoff, is set to become America's first ever second gentleman in the White House. VOA's Maria Madiello reports.
Projected Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, is making history as the first man expected to hold the role of vice presidential spouse. This is an enormous step in the quest for gender equality, says Sarah Rowley, assistant professor of history at DePaul University, but shows how much remains to be done.
This reflects progress built on decades of feminist challenges to restrictive gender roles, but it also indicates how much farther we have to go to reach gender equity, given the fact that this is the first time that we've been in this situation, 232 years after the first presidential election, 100 years after the 19th Amendment, and 36 years after the first time that a woman was on a major party presidential or vice presidential ticket.
Emhoff is only the fourth man to be spouse of a major party presidential or vice presidential ticket. There was the Walter Mondale, Geraldine Ferraro ticket in 1984.
My fellow citizens.
Followed by John McCain, Sarah Palin in 2008 and Hillary Clinton, Tim Kaine in 2016. Emhoff shatters preconceived notions in multiple ways, says University of New Haven's Matthew Schmidt.
Mr. Emhoff is leaving his job, which is usually what is in fact what all of the previous
first ladies and second ladies have done. I think it's also important that Jill Biden is not leaving her job.
A year ago,
Mr. Emhoff is not Christian. He's Jewish. That also marks a first. And of course, you have a marriage that happens later in life, that happens after a divorce, that brings children from a mixed family, both racially and religiously, together in this new family. You have a vice president who becomes Mamala.
Mamala, Harris says, is what her stepchildren call her, mixing mom and Kamala.
Vice president will be great, but Mamala will always be the one that means the most.
Harris on Monday tweeted a photo of herself and Emhoff smiling on the night Joe Biden was announced the winner of the election. Meet the love of my life, she told her 11.5 million followers.
He has really leaned into his familial role. I mean, one of the reasons why the press has, we have so many questions about who this guy is because his public presence during the campaign has really been one that has highlighted his love for Kamala Harris. They focus on their love story a lot, and one that focuses on his role as a father, as a hubby.
Harris and Emhoff met in 2013 and married a year later. It was Harris's first marriage and Emhoff's second. His children are in their 20s. So far, the 56-year-old has said little about what issues he'll champion as second gentleman.
My guess is based off of what he did in the campaign. He was a pretty quiet presence in the campaign, and I could see him choosing to be a quiet presence in the White House.
While some point to Harris as a role model, Emhoff could be viewed in the same light.
I accept
having put his wife's career above his own.
Vice President of the United States of America.
Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com from all of us here in Washington. Thank you for watching.
Being part of Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.